What's going on, everybody? Y'all already know the vibes, man. And today we're bringing back the CDL Pick'ems. If you guys don't know, this is actually a huge week in preparation for the major. Okay, this is going to determine which teams start in winners bracket and which teams start in losers at the stage 4 major, which will be on land. Hype for that. Can't wait to see how that plays out. Just for context, obviously you have Atlanta FaZe in Group A, which they're going to have the first seed. But then besides them, you have Chicago, Minnesota, both at 2-1. And then you have LA Thieves at 1-2. So there's some potential for, LA Thieves to get into the winners bracket, either Minnesota or Optic to fall out. And then on the side of Group B, New York Subliners is 3-0. They're basically guaranteed winners, but who knows if they get first, which is obviously very important, or, if they fall to a second or third. But then besides them, you have Florida Mutineers, which has been kind of a breakout stage for them. They're 3-1, currently sitting in second, but they're not necessarily guaranteed yet, I don't think, because of the matchups. And you have Toronto Ultra at 2-1, Dallas Empire at 2-2. So both of these groups, we could see a difference. So it'll be interesting. But let's go back to the pick'ems. Obviously, I said you have Toronto Ultra sitting at 2-1, and their first match of the week is against LAG, a team that Toronto should beat very easily. Toronto are definitely the favorites going into this series, and I have Toronto Ultra winning this series 3-0. I do. LAG's LAG, man. And then the second match of the day, guys, we have Optic Chicago versus Seattle Surge. This is on Thursday again. Optic, they beat up on all the teams that basically are in the top 4. They've been great against these teams. They kind of, I don't want to say they've been struggling against the top 4 teams, but they can't seem to really get over the hump. But I don't think they're going to have any issue with Seattle. I'll be generous and I'll say 3-1. I think Seattle might steal a map, but Optic is definitely going to win this series. And then on Friday, June 11th, guys, we are starting it off with New York Subliners going up against London Royal Ravens. Subliners had a very close series versus Dallas Empire, which I was kind of surprised by. In all honesty, it looked like Dallas had the series in the palm of their hands, and NYSL was able to clutch up time and time again. So congrats to them, because that match was actually very important for them. I think Subliners are going to come out and they're going to do their thing. I think they're going to win 3-0. I know I said they had a close series versus Empire, but Empire has a lot of potential now with Vivid. They do. And Vivid looked uncomfortable the first couple series that he's been a part of Empire, but he finally feels like he's getting in rhythm with the team and playing the role he needs to play for them. And if he can continue that, I think Empire has a great chance of shooting up the fucking leaderboard and really being a team that can contend. I truly do. But this is where it gets interesting, because the second match of the day on Friday, we have LAT going up against the Minnesota Rocker. Now, both of these teams haven't looked great by any means. Minnesota is currently sitting at 2-1, and LAT is sitting at 1-2. Now, Minnesota is currently in third as well. So this matchup is crucial for both teams, because after this series, they both have very tough opponents. LAT plays Optic and Minnesota plays FaZe. And honestly, you have to think that FaZe and Optic are the favorites going to those series. So it's almost like the winner of this series is going to start in winners bracket. Obviously, they're not going to be a first or second seed unless something crazy happens. But starting in winners bracket is still very important. You don't want to be going to an event, especially on land, where if you lose once, you're out. Because that's just tough scenes, right? But man, I want to try and get every series correct. I do. And you guys know how I feel about LAT, man. But at the end of the day, I'm not delusional. Okay. I am a big fan. I want to see them win. I want to see them have the most success that they possibly can, but they haven't looked the same. They just recently brought Thieves back in after benching him for Huke originally, and they've had some tough L's. They lost to Paris last week, a series that they needed to win. They got absolutely bodied off the map by FaZe. And even though Minnesota isn't looking great themselves, they are 2-1. They beat the teams that they need to beat. And I truly think that this is going to be a make or break it series for this LAT roster. Now, I don't have any intel, okay? I don't have any insight. This is just my own opinion. But you got to think, right? If you're LAT and you lose this series versus Minnesota, they will start in losers bracket. If they get bounced early there, I know they're not going to be happy. Clearly, everyone knows that. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that they would be pretty pissed. And then you're at a point where it's like, well, now what do we do? But I have LAT winning this series 3-2. I think it's going to go down to the wire. But I truly hope that they can get this win. And now we're moving on to Saturday, guys, where this first series doesn't really matter because both of these teams are going to start in losers bracket. Both of these teams are amongst the worst teams in the league. This is a pretty meaningless match in the grand scheme of things, but I feel like London has looked better. I'm just going to go ahead and say London 3-1. I do think they look better. I think they have more talent on their team, and that's my answer. Then the next match we have on Saturday, Atlanta FaZe versus Minnesota Rokkr. I think no matter what, even if Minnesota Rokkr do win this series, they're losing to FaZe. FaZe is the best team in the game, and they've proven it time and time again. They've been to the finals of every major so far in Cold War, and honestly, with how they look right now, I don't see that changing anytime soon. I think this is going to be, they're going to mop the floor with them. FaZe will win 3-0, and let's keep moving to the last match of Saturday, which is also going to be a very important matchup to determine which teams start in winners bracket for Stage 4 Major. We have Dallas Empire, guys, going up against Florida Mutineers. And even though Florida is currently sitting at second and Empire is in fourth, Florida's 3-1, Empire's 2-2. Okay, Empire, they looked pretty good versus NYSL. They did. They probably should have won that series. Florida's got some really good wins, and their one loss to NYSL was very close. Okay, it was a 3-2, but they really they took it to them, similar to how Empire did against NYSL. But the winner of this is going to be guaranteed in winners bracket. Actually, after checking the standings, Toronto Ultra is 2-1, right? Empire's 2-2, Florida's 3-1. Toronto have 2 matches. I'm just giving you guys the context to run down. We got to all assume they beat LAG 3-0, which would move them to 3-1. Their last match of the week is against NYSL, who's currently undefeated. They win that, they obviously will get first seed. They'll be in winners. NYSL will be second. And then the winner of Dallas and Florida will be third. But if they lose that and Empire beat Florida, then we have 3 teams in a 3-way tie at 3-2. Okay. So one team's gonna get bounced. So whether you're an Empire fan or a Mutineers fan, you're really hoping that your team can secure this first win. Because this is the most important thing to do. At the end of the day, even if some funky stuff happens with the 3-way tie, at least you gave it your all. It's not like you lost a series and you give yourself no chance. And I'll be honest, guys, I think Florida does take this series. I do. They look really good, man. They beat Toronto. They had a very close series against NYSL. And I don't know what's changed for them. Okay, what is clicking now? But they look like a totally different beast. I do have to give a shout out to Neptune because he's been playing lights out. This is the player that Florida needs. He needs to honestly play as consistent as he has been the last 2 weeks, right, in this stage. And if he does that, I think no argument from anyone on Florida being a top 4 team. Because they have the talent, they have the potential, and it seems like they're finally just starting to put it together. So I have Florida winning 3-1, securing a winner's bracket for them, which will be huge going into this first land. And it'll be interesting to see if they can keep trending upwards because they are improving at a very, very fast rate this late into the season, which is kind of rare, if I'm being honest. And then moving on to the last day of matches, guys, we have Paris Legion versus Seattle Surge. Once again, this is very meaningless. Ah, my God, dude. I always go for Seattle. They always let me down. I always go for Paris. They always let me down. So this is a lose-lose. I do think Paris is going to win. I have Paris winning. You know what? I have Paris winning 3-1. Let's just move on. Now we get into the juicy matchups. The second match on Sunday is going to be NYSL going up against Toronto Ultra. NYSL looking to secure that first seed, but Toronto Ultra as well. You know, they still have a chance of getting that first seed for the major. And I'll be honest, I love the guys on NYSL, love the guys on Toronto, but I feel like after Toronto suffered that early loss, they've looked great. They have. And NYSL, even though they currently are 4-0, they've had 2 Game 5s. And, you know, you could argue that there was a good shot that they could have lost both of those series. So I'm going to go 3-1. No, I'm going to go 3-2. I'm going to go 3-2. I think this will be a competitive series. You can't count NYSL out. But I think Toronto just ice up. And Toronto ends up going 2-0 in the week. NYSL goes 1-1, which means Toronto would end as the first seed. And NYSL would get number 2. And then the last match of the weekend, guys, is Optic versus LAT, the marquee matchup of the day at the LAT home series. Now, I do have LAT beating Minnesota Rocker, which now I do have LAT beating Minnesota Rocker earlier in the weekend. But that means that this match still is very important because I think Optic's going to beat Seattle, which puts them at 3-1. But hear me out. If LAT beat Optic, then LAT and Optic will both be 3-2. And that means that LAT will have the head-to-head. So they would be the second seed and Optic would be the third. And even though you could say, hey, but both teams are still in winners bracket, you want to start as far ahead as you can in the winners bracket. You know, you don't want to be in winners round 1. You want to have kind of that buffer at the end of the day. But right now, especially with how Optic's been playing, like I said, they only seem to struggle against like the top 4 teams. You have to think that they're the heavy favorites. It's simple as that. As much as I despise saying that, by the way. And I do think Optic's going to win. I think they've had the momentum playing against teams that aren't, I guess, contenders. And they've been beating up on them, you know, then that Optic is that team that I don't think they're in the same tier as phase as Toronto, as NYSL, but I think they're right there. They're on the cusp and they're in a tier of their own. You know, no other team besides those 3 are even close to Optic, at least how it's been looking as of late. So I have Optic winning 3-1, which would mean that Optic would get the second seed. LAT would get the third seed. LAT would be starting in winners, which obviously you don't want to have the third seed, but you'd rather start in winners than losers, especially because I do think this is a big tournament for LAT moving forward. Once again, though, disclaimer, this is just my personal opinion. I do not have any intel. I don't know anything. If you guys want to see me get the 14-day contract, maybe comment below. And, you know, maybe Nate Shot or John Robinson will read it, or Mud Dog or Cap, you know what I'm saying? So gas the kid up, you know? But as always, I appreciate y'all. And until next time, I'm going to see y'all when I see y'all. Deuces.